she is working as an assistant professor in the field of finance, Prestige Institute of Management and Research, Indore. Ma'am is having 14 years of rich experience, academic experience, and research experience, along with 1 year of corporate experience. Ma'am has completed her PhD on technology transfer through FDI in India, with a special reference to telecommunications sector. She has more than 35 publications to her credit. She is ASSET qualified professional programmer. She has also co-authored a book on business communication, edited 3 international conference books and 2 monographs, compiled 1 status paper on managing environmental changes for global prosperity. Her teaching area includes project management, financial modeling using Excel, financial services, entrepreneurship, business communication, and strategic management. Ma'am has successfully handled establishment, management, and operation of AIC, Prestige Inspire Foundation, supported by Atal Innovation Mission, Niti Aayog, Government of India, hosted by PIMR Indore. This is all about our resource for Ranjana ma'am's introduction. Now I would like to share about Manisha ma'am's introduction as well. Just let me read out her presentation. Getting some issue with the hearing, so I'll just read out ma'am's presentation. Manisha Singhai ma'am is an associate professor. Ma'am has also done doctorate, and her area of interest is human resource management and organizational behavior. She has joined Prestige Institute on August 1, 1998, and she has over 17 years of teaching experience and more than 24 years of research experience. She has attended several international and national conferences, seminars, research methodology workshop, case writing workshop, and faculty development programs. She has also presented number of papers in national and international conferences. There are around 50 publications to ma'am's credit. Her research papers have been published in several reputed national and international journals, which are ABDC, Scopus, Web of Science listed. She has developed number of case studies, which are published by European Case Clearing House and PIMR Case Monograph Series. She has also developed a psychological test titled Type A/B Behavioral Pattern Scale. She has also published a monograph on measures of samples of behavior, compendium of instruments. She has also written 3 status papers on organizational excellence through vibrant HR practices, effective talent management for organizational success in global environment, and organizational performance through strategic human resource management. She has also conducted various training programs on development of subordinates, motivation, personal management, and research methodology workshop. Ma'am is also associate editor and managing editor of Prestige e-Journal of Management and Research. She is an associate editor of Prestige International Journal of Management and Research. She has also been appointed member of editorial board of various reputed international e-journals. And she is also appointed as recognized PhD supervisor by DAVV, that is Devi Ahilya University, Indore, Pacific University, Udaipur, and ITM University, Raipur. Ma'am is a life member of Indian Society for Training and Development, New Delhi, and she was selected as a Vice President of ISTD Indore chapter for the session 2011 and 12 and chairperson for the session 2012 and 13. Her area of interest includes organizational behavior, motivation, and stress management. Thank you so much. And once again, welcome both of you, ma'am, for today's session. Now I'll give you the rights, ma'am, to have your presentation. So first of all, I'll invite Ranjana, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you very much, ma'am.
Yes.
So very good afternoon to all of you. And first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Amitabh Joshi, sir, for this kind opportunity which he has given both of us. And we would like to make sure that we do justice to the topic which has been given to us on this workshop, 1 week workshop on research methodology. And I hope all the researchers and faculty members, students who have joined the session definitely gain out something from this session, and this session is fruitful for all of you. Thanks a lot to Rubina madam for making all the efforts and making sure that all these things go very smooth during the entire process. She was really after all of us for all the details and nitty-gritties related to the session. So thanks a lot for that as well. And before moving ahead, just let me share my presentation with all of you. Manisha ma'am, is it visible clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And am I audible also clearly, Manisha ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. So today we are going to do a small session on sampling, and we will also attempt that we are able to touch upon research design. However, we are not sure because of the limited time that we have that we'll be able to touch upon research design. But yes, sampling today definitely will be covering. And before we move ahead and discuss sampling and other things, I just want to have a fair understanding of our today's participant in this session. And for that, I would like to have you all answer some questions on the poll, because I just want all of us should be interactive in the session. I will appreciate that you all can post your questions in chat box so that we understand during the session whatever questions we can answer, we would love to answer them. And after the session also, we can have an open session where we would like to answer any questions if you have on today's topic. So just let me open the poll for you. Please respond to this poll within a minute. Is the poll visible, madam?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you can see a question on your screen, and I would want all the participants of the session to kindly respond to this poll so that we get a fair understanding about the type of participants which we have in today's session, and we may try to address concerns related to all the participants. So last 20 seconds are left. So please do give your responses in the poll which we have started. %, people have still not started their poll. 50% people have still not started. Yeah, so polling is finished, and let us see what's the results of the poll. So as I understand clearly of all the participants today, majority of them are from management discipline. Around 41% people are from management discipline and very few from other disciplines. And 54% people have the question. And with respect to the second question, which we asked was your understanding about sampling. So the answers which we have received and the responses which we have received demonstrate that a lot of people have not answered. Around 54% people have not answered this question. And around 21 responses of the total participant believe that they fairly understand sampling. And that's about it. So fine, let's proceed ahead with this. So I hope my screen is visible to all of you. Yes. So today what we are going to do, yeah, somebody saying something?
Nothing, ma'am. You can continue, ma'am.
So first of all, let us go through what we are going to do. So we are trying to touch upon sampling and we will discuss probability and non-probability, the two sampling techniques which are utilized in research. And we would like to touch upon the various categories of sampling, when to use which technique. And as a researcher, you can, of course, decide upon which sampling technique to use depending upon the type of research you are doing, the type of objective which you have set for your research. Is it a pilot study or is it a study related to successive related to your pilot study? This all can be identified when you have a fair understanding of sampling techniques in research. Sampling happens to be a bit of a dry topic, to be very honest with you all, because it's not very interesting. There's nothing much hands-on which you can do on SPSS or Excel. So I believe that with respect to that, definitely it is going to be a bit dry session for today. But yes, we will make sure that with our examples and some of the interesting polls coming in between and during the entire 2-hour session, we will make sure that we keep up the interest of all the participants in today's session. And the initial part of the session, the first part of the session, probability sampling technique, population and sample, will be covered by Manisha ma'am. So I'd like to invite Manisha ma'am to take it ahead from here. Manisha ma'am, please, if you want, you can share your screen also, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Just a minute.
I need to make her presenter, or ma'am, are you able to?
Presenter is okay, ma'am. You can make her presenter. No worries.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome, ma'am.
I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah, it's getting there.
Okay,
It's visible now.
Okay, thank you, madam. Thank you. So thanks, Ranjana madam, and good afternoon to all of you. And I hope that all of you are healthy, happy, and safe. And today I am feeling very delighted and honored to be amongst yourself. And I am extremely thankful to Dr. Amitabh Joshi sir to give us this opportunity. And thankful to Rubina madam also for all the coordination and efforts which she has made during the process. As Ranjana madam has briefed you about today's topic of sampling, which we are going to discuss. So I will be discussing some basic points related to sampling, and then I will discuss probability sampling. So just a minute. Okay, so I would like to start my today's presentation with a famous quote of Kurt Lewin. No research without action and no action without research. So in desire.
Manisha ma'am, you have to shift your screen to the first slide. It has moved.
Okay, just a minute. Is it visible now?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, thank you. So with this quote, I would like to start my presentation because all of us are here with the willingness that we want to do some meaningful research. So to do that research, we need to act according to Kurt Lewin. So for that act, we are gathered here. So this is a learning process. When we talk about research, so it is so vast area that it is learning, always learning is possible for anybody and everybody. So today we are going to talk about all these topics which Ranjana madam has said, like sampling, types of sampling, how to decide upon sample size, determine the right sample size, confidence interval, margin of error and confidence level, standard deviation, population size, then Fisher's formula for determining sampling size, then sampling error, steps to reduce sampling error and types of sampling. So before we start talking about sampling in detail, we should know these three terms, which are very important to understand before we go to sampling techniques and other topics. These are population, sample, and sampling. So I hope you have a little idea about all these terms, but because audience is not allowed to communicate with us, so I will throw some light on these terms first. So when we talk about population is related to all the elements which are belonging to a particular group which we want to study. So all the elements in that particular group will come under population. So for example, if we want to understand the perception of graduate students about online education in Madhya Pradesh. So all the students who are pursuing graduation in Madhya Pradesh will be our population. So, and the number of elements in the population will be the size of population. So all the students who are doing graduation in Madhya Pradesh state, they will be our population. But we know that it is very difficult to approach to the population or all the members or elements to the population because it has a time constraint, it has money constraint, it has constraint of efforts. We don't have so many people with us so that we can reach to all the elements or all the members of the population. So we cannot reach to the population. So what we need to do, we need to select a representative sample. So
Manisha
here you
ma'am?
can see that.
Manisha, sorry
Yes,
to
ma'am.
interrupt. If you want to ask any question, you can ask and the participants can reply in the chat box. So that
Okay.
option you can use that.
Okay, no issues, no issues.
Sorry.
Thank you, ma'am.
Please
So,
post your questions and doubts in the chat box, and during the session, we will keep track of those.
okay, thank you, ma'am. So here you can see that in the first circle we have population. It means that the parameter which we want to study, all the people who are coming in that category, they will be our population. So suppose all these are the students of graduation who are studying in Madhya Pradesh, right? But because we cannot approach all the members of this population, so what we need to do, we need to select some members. So this will be the sample of our study and the inferences which we will make with the help of this sample. Most probably we will be able to generalize those inferences to population, or we can make inferences about population on the basis of inferences which we made through our research on the sample. So sample is the subset of the population, right? So, and in maximum cases, we need to go through sample because it is very difficult or near to impossible to reach the population or approach the population. To have a fair idea about difference between population and sample, so I have used this table here. And in this, you can see there are three columns. One is for basis for comparison, and another one is for related to population, and one is related to sample, as you can see here. So first basis for comparison between population and sample, which will be giving fair idea about what is population and what is sample. So first basis is meaning. So when the meaning of population, so it is collection of all elements who are having common characteristics, and that comprises of universe. So if we are saying that we want to study on any particular variable, we want to study students of graduate who are studying in MP. So all the students will come under this category. There is a possibility that we don't know that how many students are pursuing graduation from MP state, but everybody will come under population who are doing graduation from MP. Now, from this sample, we will select few members as part of our study and who will be the participant of study. So this will be this sample. Say, for example, if 10,000 students are doing graduation in MP, and if we are selecting 200 students, from that population of 10,000, it will be our sample. And to select right sample size is very crucial, because on the basis of inferences which we are drawing through sample study, we can infer about the population. Now, what it includes? So we could understand with the meaning that population includes each and every unit of the group. So all the students who are doing graduation will come under population, and only handful students will come under sample, right? So suppose we have selected 200 students. So 200 will be our sample and 10,000 is the population. Now the characteristics. If we talk about mean, standard deviation, so for population, if we are calculating mean and standard deviation, and if we have information about population, so mean and standard deviation of the population will be parameter, and mean and standard deviation will be the population characteristic statistics of sample. It means that if we are talking about the comparison between population mean and sample mean, and if we want to say that हमारी study बहुत reliable, valid है, तो population mean और sample mean पास में होना चाहिए, then we can say yes, we can make inferences about the population on the basis of sample. फिर उसके बाद जब हम data collection की बात करते हैं, so if we collect data from the population, it is census. जैसे गवर्नमेंट का भी जनगणना में करती है बहुत सारी चीजों को लेके, सो दे ट्राई टू डू सेंसस. आई डोंट नो कि वेदर दे आर 100% citizens or not, but that is called census because they are trying to cover population. और जब हम सैंपल स्टडी करते हैं तो दिस इज कॉल्ड सैंपल सर्वे विच वी यूज इन रिसर्च. स्पेसिफिकली इफ वी टॉक अबाउट सोशल साइंस और वी टॉक अबाउट एजुकेशन रिसर्च, सो वी डू सर्वे. फोकस की जब हम बात करते हैं तो फोकस इन पॉपुलेशन इज ऑन आइडेंटिफाइंग द कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स एंड थ्रू सैंपल वी मेक इन्फरेंसेस अबाउट द पॉपुलेशन. मान लीजिए कि अगर हमने सही तरीके से सैंपल साइज लिया है और सही सैंपलिंग टेक्निक का यूज किया है, एंड इफ इन दैट रिसर्च ऑफ परसेप्शन टुवर्ड्स ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन, सैंपल सही है और हमने कुछ स्टूडेंट्स से के साथ ये सैंपल सर्वे किया है, एंड इफ दे आर सेइंग दैट they are facing lots of health related issues, physical health and mental health related issues, and if we have we have used right sampling technique and appropriate sample size, then we can make inference about the population that students of MP who are doing graduation, they are facing lots of physical and mental health issues because of online studies. So this inference we can make if we have selected the representative sample from the population. So we will understand in later part of this presentation how to select the right sample for different studies, so that we will discuss in later part. Now we need to understand about the sampling. So now I hope all of you could understand that what is called sampling. So sampling is the process. Sampling is the process of what? We could understand that we have population. We understand that we cannot reach the population. So what we need to do, we need to select a representative sample from the population. So the process of selecting sample from the population is called sampling. And for that, we use different techniques. So we will discuss about those techniques. So here also you can see that this circle is for population. So you can see a number of members here. And from that sample, we have selected only 6 members who will be the part of our study, और इनको हम बोलेंगे ये हमारा sample है. But important thing is here that sample should be this sample selected in such a manner using such appropriate technique that it can represent the population. अगर हम simple से जो study कर रहे हैं अगर वो स्टडी पॉपुलेशन पे भी अगर हम अप्लाई कर सकते हैं या जनरलाइज कर सकते हैं, तो इसका मतलब है कि आवर सैंपल वाज रिप्रेजेंटेटिव ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन. So this is the process of sampling where we select sample from the population. Now coming to crucial question, हम बार बार बात कर रहे हैं कि appropriate sample size, appropriate sampling technique, then what should be the sample size? So पहले तो sample size क्या होना चाहिए, उसके पहले हम एक बार फिर से देखते हैं कि what is sample size. Number of elements in the sample is the sample size. As I have stated you in the earlier example, that if we have 10,000 students who are studying in graduation, and if we are selecting 200 students, so 200 will be the sample size. अब sample size कितना होना चाहिए? So lot of questions come for this particular issue कि क्या होना चाहिए appropriate size, because if we want to take too big sample, अगर मान लीजिए 10,000 का population and if we say that we will approach 4,000, 5,000 students, this is very difficult because we don't have those much financial resources. इतना time भी हमारे पास नहीं है और इतने लोग भी हमारे पास नहीं है those who can contribute in this effort कि हम पूरा population से या हम maximum लोगों से data को collect कर पाएं. So too big will be requiring lots of resources, and these resources are not available with us. And if it is too small, then it will not solve our purpose to generalize the findings on the population. कि अगर हमने 10,000 हमारा population and we have taken 10, 20, 50 और उनसे जो inferences हमको मिले हैं उस पे हम generalize कर पाएं, so in maximum cases it will be very difficult. In some cases specific studies छोटा sample भी काम करता है जब हम बहुत सारी qualitative studies करते हैं और अलग तरीके की studies करते हैं, but generally जो studies हम management, social science और education में करते हैं, अगर वहाँ पे small sample size, if it is too small, then जो findings हमको इस पे मिलेंगी, we will not be able to generalize those findings on the population. और फिर जब अगर हम population पे findings को generalize नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, it means हमारा जो study है, it is not contributing to the society. We have done the study, we have published it, but society को कोई contribution नहीं है because हमारा जो sample है वो population का representative sample नहीं था. But जब भी हम research की बात करते हैं तो हम उसमें ये बात करते हैं कि it should be meaningful and it should contribute to the society. तो अगर society को contribute करना है तो सैम्पलिंग टेक्निक और सैम्पलिंग साइज सही होना चाहिए. बट अब कैसे डिसाइड करेंगे कि सैम्पलिंग साइज क्या होगी हमारी पर्टिकुलर स्टडी के लिए? से एग्जांपल वांट टू स्टडी emotional intelligence or academic stress or anything we want to study. Just a minute, we have some I'm getting one thing is there related to language.
Manisha ma'am, आप वीडियो स्टॉप कर लीजिए because I think your network is bit poor.
Okay.
And there's a small thing which we wanted to ask all our participants. What would you prefer? Full English as a medium of instruction, or you want Hindi or English mix? We can repeat it in Hindi. We can explain in English and we can repeat it in Hindi. It is basically effort is to make sure that you all feel comfortable and you all understand what is being taught today and whatever we are discussing. So just wanted to have few inputs on what do you all prefer as a medium of communication. Okay. So
Okay.
responses that English will be more comfortable. Yeah. So
Okay,
just to
so
make sure
questions.
that few people may be comfortable in, yeah. So everybody is responding, Manisha ma'am, that they want in English only.
Okay.
Few are saying others. Yeah, a lot of people are from other states, so they want it to be in English. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Just a minute. I'll stop my video and then share it.
Yes.
So I hope it is visible.
It is visible.
Okay. So we were talking about that how to decide upon sample size. To decide upon sample size, we can take the help of published studies on the variable which we are going to study through our research. So we can do a review of literature. We will studies. It means that we can take a small sample, and then we can take data from that small sample, and then we can study the statistics of that sample. And from the results of that statistics, like standard deviation or mean, we can understand that what should be our sample size. But if this information is not available with us, or we don't know about the population, so there is no any one good way to calculate the sample size. So we need to use the available literature, and we need to use our understanding about the population, because we are not having much information about many aspects of population. But as I told you, that determining the right sample size is very important, because we have seen that if it is too small, then it will not give the right results which can be applied on population, which can be used for society. And if we want to take larger sample, because larger sample will have smaller margins for error, there will be less error if we are taking larger sample. It means that there will be less difference between the findings which we are getting through sample and with the actual population. But to take larger sample, it will involve cost and time. So it is difficult. At the same time, the sample will also affect reliability and validity of the results. So there may be some sampling errors also, which will affect. So these things are very important to understand and very crucial to take care of these things, because we wish to generalize the results on population. When we talk about errors, we need to understand two concepts here, which are related concepts. These are confidence interval and confidence level. So when we talk about confidence interval, which is also known as margin of error, so it is talking about that how confident we are that the results which we are getting from reflect the survey which if we can do with the population. So how much confident we are. So in this we can have some type of margin of error that can be plus or minus. So for example, if we say that confidence interval is 5, then and 60% of the sample is picking an answer. So if we want to understand the entire population, how much we are confident that entire population will be giving the same answer. So we need to do 60 minus 5. We need to find the range 60 minus 5 and 60 plus 5, that is 55% and 65%. So between 55% and 65% from the population will pick the same answer which is given by the sample. So that is how we can find this, we can have this confidence with the confidence interval, and the related term is confidence level. It is expressed in terms of percentage, and with what percentage of confidence we can say that it will produce, the sample will produce the same result as population may produce the result. Okay. So larger the sample size, then we have more confidence level, and there will be less confidence interval or less margin of error. It means that if we are taking larger sample, it will give the same results as population may give if we are able to reach that population. One more term it is important here, which comes under statistics of sample, that is standard deviation. Standard deviation is talking about the distribution of data from its mean. That the data or which we are getting from the sample, how much they are closer to the mean, or how much they are dispersed or they are away from the mean. If the data is closer from the mean, it means that the standard deviation will be very low, and we will get the results which we can generalize on the population. It means that we have not made much mistake in the selection of sample. Mistakes, how we commit mistakes, like for example, if we want to study our student on some parameters, say for example, what they think about management policies, or what they think about, say for example, we take the same example, online education. So we are study on research on a particular institution, and in that institution we are having from social science, we are having students from management, we are having students for engineering. And if we have selected sample from only one or two disciplines, we are saying that students of our institute are comfortable with online education, this result may be wrong, because there is a possibility we have selected the students as sample from the discipline where we have more theoretical subjects. So they may be enjoying online education, but there may be some other students who are having more or many practical subjects. So they may find it difficult to understand the practical subjects with online mode of studies. So we cannot generalize that finding to the students of institution, all these students, because the standard deviation is very high, and the population, the distance of population mean and sample mean is very high. So we cannot generalize this particular finding to the population of that institute. So this is very important to understand. And the greater the standard deviation and the greater the magnitude of the deviation of sample from the population or from the mean. Now, what to do about the sample size? Population size. If we want to do the research, which we can easily generalize on the population, we should try to have estimation of entire population so that we can decide upon the appropriate sample size. But what happens that in many cases, we don't know much about the population. So we are not having any idea about the population size. But in some cases, we have population, we know the population size. So there we can decide right sample size with minimum errors possible. The cases in which we know the population size, like we have example that number of employees working in any organization or in any institution, that we can know easily. So population is known to us if we are doing any study on any specific organization. Say, for example, we are doing any research on Prestige Institute of Management and Research. So it is very easy to understand to have the idea about the population size. But if we are conducting a research on the students of MP or India, then it is very difficult to have the fair idea about the population. But in some cases, it is not possible to have idea about the population size, like how many people are using cold drinks or consuming cold drinks in India, or how many are bird lovers in our country. So in some cases, it is very difficult to have fair idea about the population size. But if we have some idea about the population size, it will affect the selection of the sample size. If we have idea about population size, we will be able to select correct sample size, and our results will be, we will be able to generalize findings to the population. Now, Andrew Fisher has given one formula to determine sample size. So the steps which he has given: determine the population size if possible, determine the confidence interval or margin of error, then determine the confidence level, then have idea of a standard deviation. If we don't have any idea about a standard deviation, then we can have 0.5 deviation as a safe choice, because it is coming in between, because it cannot be more than 1. So if we are taking it 0.5, it is good. And we can convert confidence level into a Z-score. So we can see this formula, and we can see that how we can calculate in this formula. So this is the formula: sample size equals to Z-score square into standard deviation into 1 minus standard deviation divided by confidence interval square, right? So this is the confidence level. We want to say that we want to have 99% confidence level that our results are similar to the results of population or parameters of population. We want to say with 95% confidence. When we talk about confidence level, generally when we talk about social science or educational research, 95% confidence is okay. But if the issue or research topic is very sensitive, like in medical science, then they need to go for 99% confidence, because they want to, they are in their hands, they have life of others. So they cannot work with 95% confidence. Like they were developing vaccine for corona, to get rid of this corona pandemic. So they were not able to work on 95%. So they took some time to give this vaccine to the population. So because they wanted to be sure by 99% of confidence. So that is why in sensitive issues, we need to take confidence level of 99%. Otherwise, in social science or education, we can take 95% confidence level. So we will put all the values in the this particular formula. Confidence level is 95%, standard deviation is 0.5 if we are taking confidence interval of 5%. So if we are putting all these values in this formula, we can have sample size of 385, right? So please look at this formula and please, I am giving you 2-3 minutes. So if you can calculate the sample size, if we want to say that we want to have 99% confidence or findings, so if we want to have that confidence of 99% with only 1% chance of error, then what we is according to this formula. If you can use this formula for confidence level of 99%. So let us see what is the value which is coming. And you will be able to understand that if you want to be more confident about our findings, then we need to select a larger sample size.
So the formula is in front of you. What we want you to do is, please take a confidence level of 99%. And with that, try and calculate sample size. And please post your answers in the chat box. So we'll just take a break of a minute. Meanwhile, when you are doing it, and we are awaiting your answers in the chat box. Manisha ma'am, if what
Yes.
I'll do is I'll just add on a question to the poll.
Yes.
And I'm just sharing my screen, so you have to unshare it because only then I can add a question to the poll.
Yes, just a minute. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All the participants are requested to kindly calculate it in their copies or laptops, whatever is convenient. And please do send in your answers in the chat box so that we can identify whether you have really understood the formula or not.
I think we need to keep the formula in front of them. Ma'am, please show the formula again because answer is not coming correct. So there may be some confusion. You are on mute, ma'am. Yes, Preeti ma'am, we are showing this.
Yeah, so this is the formula in front of you.
Z value is the minimum value which we can get out of applying a test of difference. And this we can get from any statistics book. This is the minimum value which we should have for significance. Yes. Vinay sir has answered it. So now we can show the.
Just give me a second, madam.
Yes.
I just have to complete the poll.
Okay.
So in WebEx, you cannot make the poll in advance. You have to do it while you're sharing the screen.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's a bit of inconvenience, but yes. So can we open the poll now? Okay. So meanwhile, if you have calculated the sample size at 99% confidence level, I'm opening the poll for all of you. And this time I'll give a bit more of time because I think last time 1 minute was a bit insufficient. Okay. So please start answering the poll. And this is about the question, a simple question which we have asked all the respondents. All the participants of today's session, just please go through the questions in the poll and please. So last 15 seconds left. Still a lot of people are not responding. Okay, thank you very much for your answers. And Manisha,
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
have we got
Yes, yes, we
the
have.
answers?
Yes, we have received the answers.
So
And
if you can continue the session because that's a minimum break which we should give our participants.
okay, okay,
Yes.
okay, thank you. Just a minute, I will share. Just a minute. My screen is visible, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So we have calculated for confidence level of 95%. Then sample size we have calculated as 385. Level up to 99%. Then we want to leave only 1% chances of error. Then, of course, it is very logical that sample size should be more. If sample size is larger, then we will be more closer to the population. So few participants have calculated it 271, but yes, few participants have calculated it correctly. So answer is 666, because as we want to raise the confidence level, then we need to increase the sample size. More closer we will be to the population, more closer we will be more confident about the findings which we are getting through the sample. So we need to increase the sample size if we want to be more confident about the findings. So that is why in medical research, they want to have more confidence on their medicines or drugs. So they use this confidence level of 99%. So they take much time to research on any new disease or drug or medicine or vaccine in comparison to the research which we are doing in management or in education. Now coming to errors which we may commit, because if we are not getting the right results, we need to see the errors. So there are some non-sampling errors and some sampling errors. So here we will talk about sampling errors because the topic is of sampling. Non-sampling errors includes the error which we may commit or at the time of data collection, or selecting the right statistical tool for analysis, or making the scale or questionnaire. So all those things will come under non-sampling errors. Here we will talk about sampling error, and in statistics we have two types of sampling error: type 1 error and type 2 error. So when we talk about type 1 error, it means that probability of finding a difference when compared our sample with the population, and in reality there is no difference. It means that we are rejecting the null hypothesis. We are saying that there is a difference between two groups of sample or between sample and population, but actually there is no difference. Say, for example, if we are and in our results we are finding that there is a difference, but actually when we observe here and there, we see different article review of literature and we try to find out. So actually in society there is no difference, but in our result we are finding a difference. So this is called type 1 error, and just opposite to it is a type 2 error. It means that we are not finding any difference, but actually there is a difference. So same example ki actually there is a difference between boys and girls, but we are not finding any difference. So this is called beta error, or it is called type 2 error, and it is usually 80%. And this is more clarification about the sampling error. Type 1 error: reject a true null hypothesis. When we need to accept, we are rejecting it. And when we need to, this is type 2 error, when we are accepting a false null hypothesis. So these two types of error may be there, and these are called sampling error. And these error may be because we have not selected the appropriate sample size, or there is a possibility that we have not used right sampling technique to select the sample. So that is why these two types of errors may commit, and this will reflect in our results when we are finding a difference between two groups or sample or population, but in reality there is no difference. And in type 2 error, we are not finding any difference between two study groups, but actually there is a difference. And why this is happening in our research? Because maybe the sampling size was very small, so it was not representative of the population, or maybe the technique which we have used, so we have not selected the representative sample. So standard deviation was very high. So these two types of errors we may commit, and to what to this sample here. So first, which we are discussing from the beginning, it is we need to increase the sample size, right? Second thing, which we can do that if just say for example, we can understand here that for any particular specific demographic, we are taking 20% of the population, then this should be in the sample also. Say for example, if we are taking if we are doing any study on boys and girls, then we see that the ratio of proportion of boys and girls in population in our population is 40 to 60. 40% are girls and 60% are boys in population. So what we should try, that we should try to take 40% of girls and 60% of boys in the sample also. So if we are having same proportion of different demographics in the sample which we are having in population, then we may get correct results which we may generalize to the population. And one more thing which we can do for reducing sample error, that we can know demographics of the population, and at times it is really difficult to have this understanding of the population, but if possible we should try to know the population. Now coming to sampling methods, because two important things are there related to having right sample. One was sample size, which we were discussing till now, and one is sampling methods or sampling techniques. So now in this portion, we will talk about sampling techniques. There are two types of sampling techniques in statistics: probability sampling and non-probability sampling. With this picture, we can understand that probability sampling is based on randomization. We randomly pick the elements from the population to become the part of the sample. The unique part of this particular sampling, probability sampling, is that everybody, whosoever is there in the population, have fair chances to be included in the sample, or have equal chances to be included in the sample. But if we talk about non-probability sampling, which will be taken by Dr. Ranjana Patel in later part of this presentation. So we can see here with this picture that everybody is not having fair chances to be included in the sample. So some rules are there. Further division is there because I am taking probability samples. So I will talk about the different types of probability sampling, which is random sampling also. So simple random sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, and stratified random sampling. And non-probability sampling has four types: convenience sampling, purposive or judgment sampling, snowball sampling, and quota sampling. So I will be dealing here with probability sampling only. So as we can understand, this is based on the randomization. So it is alternatively known as random sampling, and every element of the population gets equal chances to be the part of sample selecting. So anybody can be selected here. There are different types, as I have told you: simple, systematic, stratified, and cluster random sampling. So we will try to understand all these four types of probability sampling with example. Then we will move ahead with non-probability sampling. So first we will talk about a simple random sampling. So as we say that everybody has equal chance to be the part of a sample. So here we generally don't have any much information about the population, and we randomly select anybody without any rule to be the part of sample. Say for example, if we are doing a study on any class or any institution, so we can randomly select without applying any rule, and everybody has equal chance to be the part of the sample. But there may be, if we do this simple random sampling, there may be a problem, some biasness or some other problem with representative sample, because like I was taking example of that in any institution, we have science students, we have commerce students, we have engineering students. And if we are doing simple random sampling, we may leave the commerce student, we may leave the science students. So there is a possibility we may not select the representative sample, but yes, this is the popular technique which is used by most of the researchers. Simple random sampling, where everybody from the population has fair chances to be selected. So this is again the pictorial presentation of simple random sampling. So inside I can see the population, and this is the sample which we have selected from the population. So there is no rule applied here. Third element is there, 10th element is there, 14th element is there, and it is selected randomly. So no rule is applying here. Now coming to stratified sampling. Just a minute. Particular technique, what we are doing, we are dividing the elements of the population into small subgroups, right? And this division will be on basis of the similarity they are having in their characteristics. So there will be homogeneous subgroups, but this group will be different from other subgroups, right? So we are the subgroups which we are making for our research purpose, these will be called strata. So members of any strata will be homogeneous, but this will be different from other subgroup or strata. So this is, and from elements from these stratas or subgroups, we randomly select elements from each of the strata which we have created or decided. Say for example, for any study, we have created three subgroups. Then these three subgroups will be, we will be selecting the sample or elements from all these subgroups. So you can see here that we have three stratas, three subgroups, and we have selected one element from each of the subgroups. So this is the presentation of stratified sampling. Now we are going to discuss again one example of stratified sampling. Say for example, we are seeking the opinion of population about government policies. So what we can do, because we cannot go to all the citizens, so what we will do, we can create stratas of age groups. So first we will create a strata like we have created here, age group from 18 to 29, from 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59, and 60 and above. These are our strata, and in each stratum we will select we will select equal number of members. So some will be selected from 18 to 29, some will be selected from 30 to 39, some will be selected from 40 to 49, some will be selected from 50 to 59, and some will be selected from 60 and above. So the strata which we have created, from every stratum we will have sample. So this is called stratified sampling. Now coming to systematic random sampling. In random sampling, what we were doing, we were not applying any rule. We were randomly selecting, but in that selection there was a possibility that we could leave some important segment of the population. So to avoid that thing, we can do systematic sampling also. In systematic sampling, we will apply some rule that first element we will select. Then what we will do, we will apply any rule that we will select a specific item. Say for example, we have taken here the example that if we have 100, population size is 100, and we want to have 10 members in, what we can do, we can select every 10th member, and this is called systematic sampling. We have decided that which member, whosoever is the 10th position, we will be selecting it. So 10th, then 28th, then 38th. So with interval of 10th, we will select the sample. We will be able to more clear about this particular systematic sampling with one example, one figure that here you can see that alternatively the person, the sample is getting second, fourth, sixth, 8th, and 10th. One more example we can here use here, that one cold drink company wanted to have understanding about the liking of their cold drink. So they can have a survey from every fourth customer who is coming to the movie theater. They don't know that who is coming on the fourth position, but every fourth customer will be selected as sample. It is random because we don't know that on every fourth who will be the customer, who will be the audience. coming to watch the movie, but we have applied the rule that every fourth customer will be selected to be the part of sample who is coming to watch the movie. Now coming to cluster sampling. In this particular sampling, we divide population in the clusters or sections, and generally these clusters are present naturally, but we decide them. And all the elements of the cluster will be used as sample, may be used as sample. We will understand this sampling with example with all the three types of cluster sampling. One-stage sampling, two-stage sampling, and multi-stage sampling. These are the three types of cluster sampling. So one by one, we will discuss all these three types with examples so that you can have a fair idea about it. First, we will talk about single stage sampling. Then when we are having a cluster and we are using that cluster for random sampling. In two-stage sampling, what we are doing, we are having clusters and we are randomly selecting the clusters to select the element of the sample. And these are the examples of one-stage and two-stage cluster sampling. So say, for example, there is one NGO and who is working obviously for social cause, and they want to create a sample of 5 neighboring villages to provide education. So what they can do, they can select 5 towns as cluster to form a sample, and from all these 5 towns, they will identify the underprivileged girls and they can give education to all the girls who are in these clusters in these 5 neighborhoods, right? So all the girls who are underprivileged, who are not getting education from these towns, say for example, in these 5 towns, they find 100 girls who are not getting proper education. So they give education to all the 100 girls. This is one stage where you are using all the elements of cluster as your sample. When we talk about two-stage sampling, then the same example we can use here. In two-stage sampling, first they have created clusters and then they have randomly selected elements from all the clusters. It means that they have selected few girls to give education from all those towns. So this is two-stage where they are having 2 stages of random sampling. In one stage, they are random sampling of clusters only, but in two stage, they are first random sampling of clusters and then they are selecting elements, randomly selecting the elements from those clusters. So this is about one stage and two stage cluster sampling. Now coming to multi-stage sampling. So in this particular type of sampling, population is divided into multiple clusters. Then these clusters are further grouped into various subgroups, and these subgroups will be made on the basis of similarity, right? And one or more clusters can be randomly selected from each spectrum, and this process we can continue till the end where we cannot further divide the cluster. Say for example, any country can be divided into states into cities, because cluster sampling is generally done for natural clusters. So we can first take cluster of states, then we can take cluster of cities, then we can divide the cities into urban and rural areas, or other form of clustering can be used here. We will try to understand this multi-stage sampling with one example. You can see here cluster, stratum and item. So cluster will be divided into subgroups, and from these subgroups we can select the items or elements. Example, I have given you one example of multi-stage sampling, that one organization is there and one organization is willing to do a survey on the performance of a smartphone, on their performance of their smartphones across the country. So what they can do, they can divide the entire country's population into cities. So cities will be their cluster. And in second level, they can select the cities with the highest population. Then they can also filter the population with the parameter that whosoever is doing using mobile devices, it will be their population, and then from that population they can randomly select the sample. So this is the example of multi-stage sampling. According to the sensitivity of your research, according to the information which you are having about the population, and according to the confidence level which you want to decide for your study, you can select any type of sampling. So this was all about probability sampling, which we have covered through simple random sampling, systematic sampling, cluster sampling, and stratified sampling. Now I will request Dr. Ranjana Patel to take further with the non-probability sampling and other important aspects of sampling. Ranjana madam, please.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, madam.
Okay. So till now, in probability sampling, what is the major difference between probability sampling and non-probability sampling? The name itself signifies that the probability of any item or any representation in the population to become sample is high. We say it's a probability sampling. When it is not randomized, we say it's a non-probability sampling. But before moving to the non-probability sampling, let's do a small quiz on probability sampling, जो अभी तक हमने पढ़ा है. So I'll just give you one question and let's see what clarity do we have on what we have studied in probability sampling. So you just have to give me a minute before I start the poll. So I'm just opening the poll for all of you. Please answer the question which you are having in front of your screens. A TV host shows ask his viewers to visit his website and respond to an online poll. What type of sample is this? So we are getting good response. But still around 50% people have not even started responding. So I'll request all of you to please respond to the question in the poll. Just have 30 seconds left. %60 people are still have not started responding. Ten seconds left. Okay, so the answer which we have received here, 10 people of 143 responses say none of the above, which is the right answer in this case. 47 people feel it is simple random sampling. 12 people feel it is cluster random sampling. 15 people feel this is a systematic random sampling. But the correct answer is none of the above, because no probability sampling technique have been used. And this kind of response, when somebody wants to generate, when you see a ad and they want you to a restaurant and they just want you to give a feedback, this is called as volunteer response sample. इसको हम volunteer response sample बोलते हैं, क्योंकि whenever you will go and explore types of sampling, you will find a lot of other sampling also apart from the technical and theoretical ways of sampling. And out of that, one of the most common, which is nowadays used by marketing agencies, are the volunteer response method, by which they try and choose a simple sample which can give them some indication of the poll which they are doing. So I'll just ask one more question here. Just give me a second. We are starting the second poll now in a second, where we would like to see what you have understood with respect to probability sampling. Yeah, it's in front of you. Please start responding. In the paucity of time, we will not take more questions. However, we have more questions, but we'll restrict to only 2. So the question here is, for a hospital chain with multiple locations, randomly select some of their locations for a cleanliness check of their operating rooms. The inspector checks every operating room in the hospitals that were chosen. What type of sample is this? So 1 minute left. $80 people have still not started responding to the question which we have given. So I'll just give you the keyword in the last 30 seconds. You please make sure that you read carefully. Multiple locations, randomly select some of their locations. That is the keyword for the answer. I'm still getting more wrong answers than right answer. So yeah, So we have ended the poll and only 18, just a sec, it's still compiling, just a sec. Okay, so only 20 people have given the right answer of all the participants, and the right answer is cluster random. And the keyword was that they have randomly selected hospitals from multi locations. So this is our poll, and now, yeah, so there is one chat where they're saying that the questions are not fully visible. So that's the limitation of using WebEx. I'm extremely sorry. And it takes time also to create a poll. You cannot do it while you're not sharing the screen. So it's very difficult to do it in WebEx. I'm extremely sorry. But we'll make sure that if you are all on some Telegram or WhatsApp group, we'll send you these questions along with answers and why these are the answers. So we will share this with you for your convenience so that you can have better understanding, because I understand clearly that it's not possible in one go that you understand everything when you hear it. So you can go through it. We will share some notes also on this, which can help you for doing some research. It can help you further to narrow down upon the type of sampling technique which you want to use. So the bottom line of sampling is very simple. Number one, it has to first relate to the objective and the nature of your study. If you are clear about what kind of study you are conducting, what is the scope of your study, is this a pilot study or is this a successive study to your pilot study? You can even do n sampling, n number of times you can do sampling with the data, successive pilots to come to a model. So different kind of research studies will require different kind of sampling techniques. But why in majority of the studies, if you find, like Manisha ma'am has already shared with you, that if you want to choose a sample, the best way to choose a sample is to do some pilot study first, because pilot study will help you understand better. It is fairly difficult to estimate the real population, but it is not impossible. It's not, we cannot say that it's not possible at all. It is fairly possible. If you are doing a study in, say, a management institution where, or any college where you exactly know the number of students, and if you want to do a very objective study on identifying, say, the health need or health service need of these students studying in this college, then you really know the population, then you really know what is your objective. And in this case, you can use probability sampling, any of the methods, whatever you want. You can choose a stratified sampling, you can choose a cluster sampling. But in majority of the cases, when under management, like what we have seen in our opinion poll, that a lot of you, 90% of our participants to this workshop, management discipline. So in our management studies, we try to do researches from a generalized area, like we want to study the perception of people, we want to study consumer behavior, we want to study the brand visibility, we want to study buying behavior, preferences and other things. So usually in those cases, the population is unknown, and that is wherein non-probability sampling takes an, it takes a edge over probability sampling, because it is convenient and it gives you more liberty as a researcher to initially conduct your pilot studies. And majority of the time we are basically doing pilot studies. Okay. So non-probability studies, let's understand what are non-probability sampling and non-probability techniques of sampling. So where there is no randomization. So if you can see here, again, there is a population. Give me a second. Okay. So if you just see here that we have a population, mixed population, where it is here represented by few pink items, blue items, and black and white items, male and female, which is visible from the picture. So if you just look into this population, you can see there are 4 kinds of people in this sample, 4 different kind of people who are representing this population. But when the sample is selected through a non-probability technique, you can see here that these pink items represent twice as much as other items, male and a female item here and a blue item. That means not a fair or not a random representation of sample. So this may happen in non-probability technique, and it does not mean that if you're using non-probability sampling, your research is not good enough. It's not the case. So it does not rely upon randomization. The technique is more reliable, and usually why people use it, because it saves a lot of time. In research, what we are limited by as researchers, number one item what we are limited by is time, that we have to do a lot of researchers in limited time frame. We are limited by resources, access to resources. We are limited by money to spend on these researchers, and we are also limited by the sensitivity of the kind of research we do. So because we are usually not into clinical researchers, medical researchers, which are very sensitive in nature, we can think of using non-probability technique. As I've also mentioned, that we usually use pilot studies, or the kind of researchers which we do are level 1, level 2 study, where we are narrowing down more on specific topics, and we do continuous studies on those topics. So outcome of sampling might be biased and makes difficult for all the elements of population to be part of the sample equally. And this kind of sampling is called as non-probability sampling or non-random sampling. So there are basically 4 types of non-probability sampling technique. Majority of research papers, whatever you will go across through even good journals, and whenever you are doing a research, you should always look into the research journals which are published in your domain. Suppose if you are a marketing faculty or marketing researcher, you really have to look into Journal of Marketing and other good reliable resources, so that you understand what kind of researches are those who are getting in these journals, and what is the type of even sampling technique or the research design which they are focusing upon. So in India, we usually are not following a lot of standardized research designs, but in foreign countries and in good journals, if you want to get your research published, you really have to look into a research design like Research Onion. So I hope you all are aware about it. So Research Onion is a platform which can be used. Similarly, for selecting right sample, there are a lot of online platforms which are now available, despite of the fact if you as a researcher are not very much aware or not very much confident of which type of sampling to use, you can use these platforms. Some of them are free platform and some of them are paid platforms like SurveyMonkey. I'll just put it in the chat. You can explore it. SurveyMonkey, when you specify the confidence level, confidence interval, then they also tell you what is the type of target population or what is the type of sample which you should be looking into. So you can explore it with SurveyMonkey. You can explore it with Gpoll. There is one more platform, Gpoll, which can be used. So there are many, but these are many very common platforms, and even your institution can have subscription to SurveyMonkey, because developing a questionnaire is very easy in SurveyMonkey. Even collecting data becomes very easy. So if you can use these tools, a lot of time can be saved in drafting. Even they help you with a preconditioned questionnaire. They suggest, SurveyMonkey platform even suggest questions which you should be incorporating in your research depending upon the topic. It's a highly interactive platform, and it saves a lot of time and effort when you are using these platforms. And so, yes, non-probability sampling technique, there are 4 methods of doing it. One is convenience sampling, judgment or purposive sampling, quota sampling, and snowball sampling. The name itself is suggestive of the type of sampling technique, and it is very convenient to narrow down on these sampling methods and take the sample for your research, depending upon the type of research which you are continuing with. So let's first see what is convenient sampling. So this is how a convenient sampling looks like. If I want to show it pictorially to you, this is how your sampling technique, convenient sampling, will look like. There is no randomization, convenience. Whose convenience? Researchers' convenience. So the convenience sampling technique is based on the availability. So if I just give you a very small example, when you do a research, suppose if you want to have a perception research on or consumer preference research on any product, it can be edible product, it can be non-edible or a consumer durable or appliance product, and you just want to do a study and see how people, what is level of awareness related to that product. Suppose if you want to do a study on knowing what is people's perception towards 5G services in India, and you go to a shopping mall, you stand there, and whosoever person comes in front of you, you take a response from that person. So that is one of the method of doing convenience sampling, and researcher prefers this during the initial stages of survey research, and it is very quick and easy to deliver results. So you collect the data very fast, it requires very less effort and resources. This is convenience sampling. So what are the benefits of using convenience sampling? You can collect data quickly, it is expensive or reasonably inexpensive, easy to do the research, low cost. That means you do not have to incur a lot of cost in doing this kind of research. Sample is readily available and fewer rules to follow. Like in case of probability sampling, there are rules which you have to follow. In convenience sampling, this is what is, your effort is reduced to. So what are the merits? Usually you should employ this method. Just a sec, somebody's waiting in the lobby. Okay. So what is the merits? Usually you use it for pilot studies, you use the results that are easily available, and process of picking people is very convenient, fast, and minimum cost, like I've already told you. And what are the limitations? High risk of selection bias. Like if you are suppose collecting data from 25 people, and the first 25 people who you select from that particular are people who have no idea about 5G services. It's a complete bias in the research. And maybe, the next 25 who are walking in knew everything about 5G and the 5G services, and maybe they are even users of 5G. But what will happen when you will do such a research, you will say that, when I tried to do a research using convenience sampling method, all 25 of my respondents said they are not aware about 5G services. That means the company should do more awareness campaigns and other things. However, this will be a biased research. So bias increases in case of convenience sampling. May give you misleading information, and it is not a true representation of sample. Next is purposive and judgmental sampling. Very easy to remember. Purposive sampling. That means what is the purpose of your study? Accordingly, you select your sample. So it is always based on the purpose of your study. Those elements will be selected from the population which suits the best for your purpose of your study. So you are very particular about, pinpointed that, these should be my people. Like I have given you one example over here. If I want to do a research and I just want to find out, I am a management institution selling PG courses, master's courses, and I just want to know how many people are interested in doing master's degree. And I do it purposive, judgmental way. So people who will say yes will become part of the sample. People who will say no will be excluded from the sample. This is purposive and judgment sampling. So if you just want to look into the pictorial representation of purposive and judgmental sampling, this is how it looks. People who say yes become part of the sample, say no doesn't become part of my sample. The merits, again, it is less expensive, consumes minimum time, very easy to achieve, and it consumes less time for execution also. So you can collect the data very fast, you can have findings very fast, and your time to do research reduces. That is why when you will explore journals, a lot of you may have explored a lot of journals, you will see in research methodology part, wherever tool for sample collection is written and wherever sample is mentioned, they always usually write, majority of the cases, they write non-probability judgment sampling, non-probability quota sampling, non-probability convenience sampling. Non-probability convenience sampling is the most utilized form of doing pilot studies in researchers in management discipline. The limitation, again, it is highly subjective. That means too subjective with respect to taking the samples. Generalization is not. Why? Because when we do research, what is that basically what we are trying to attempt? We are trying to do a research on sample, and the objective is to come up with the generalized model on the basis of sample, which can be applied on population, right? Just a sec, again, somebody is waiting. Yes. Yeah. So what will happen? What we are trying to do in our research, we are trying to find out, we are trying to research, that means search something on with the help of sample, which can be applied or generalized or proposed or inferred to the entire population. So what we do is we do population, we do sampling, collect a sample, and we analyze it and we inference, we do draw inferences from that sample which can be applied on the population. So that can go haywire and biased in case of non-probability. Let's move on to the next one is quota sampling. So what is quota sampling? We have a preset standard which we set as a researcher or as a person who wants to do or conduct a research, and the proportion of
I hope there is some network problem. So maybe ma'am will connect soon.
Am I not audible?
Now you're audible, ma'am. There was, I think, some connection loss for a second.
Okay, so where did you all lose me? Just tell me that.
It was just a few seconds only.
Okay,
Hardly
okay.
a
Done. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I'll continue with quota sampling. So in this case, we have some pre-specified or preset standard for selecting the sample. For example, if I tell you that in a housing society, suppose 500 people are living, and of those 500 people, 40% people are male and 60% people are female. Study or do some research using non-probability quota sampling technique. Of course, I will not take all the 500 people from the society, but I may take 50, I may take 20, but those 20 should be in the same proportion as are the inhabitants of the society. That means very simply kya hoga iska matlab? It means that 40% people in my sample should be male and 60% people in my sample should be female, because in this case, I have a set standard. It should be clear representation of the sample selected. So quota sampling from non-probability sampling is quite a famous technique because it still validates your results more when you know the population. Please remember, when you know the population. So you can see here, researcher selects first elements from the population and then subsequently, we have quota sampling I've completed, yes. So this is quota sampling, which we have done. So we have if you see here example, if our population has 45% female and 55% male, then our sample should reflect the same percentage of male and female while we are conducting this study. Next is referral or snowball sampling. As the name itself indicate, referral. What is referral? I tell you where to go. If I buy a product and tell you who's the next person in my friend list or among the people whom I know or my acquaintances who can buy this product, this is called as referral, right? So in case of referral and snowball sampling, when will you use this technique is very important. You may know all the kind of sampling techniques. You can really understand, okay, these are 8-9 kinds of But the most important decision as a researcher which you have to take is which sampling technique to take. It will depend upon, again, the scope of your research. When we take snowball sampling, when we do not have any idea about population, when the population is not easily traceable, when the population is rare. For example, here, I'll just give you a small example. Suppose if I do not know that how many people are suffering from AIDS. So it's a sensitive information. People are suffering from it, but it is not information which is available in common domain. So what will the researcher do? Researcher will just try and find out one person who's suffering from AIDS or cancer, right? I'll go to that person as a researcher, ask my question on whatever research topic I am going to study. And from that one person, I will ask for one or two reference or whatever reference he can give, 1, 2, 3, whatever they can give. And on the basis of that, my second sample, initially, what is my sample in snowball method? N is equal to 1. And I'm dependent on that 1 to give me another referral. And slowly, what I do is I snowball it. What happens in case of a snowball? It is a small ball usually when you create it. And you just keep on adding the snow to it and it can become a bigger snowball. So that's the entire logic of using snowball technique. Okay. So what we are saying, when the population is completely unknown and rare, we use referral and snowball technique of sampling. Let's move to the next slide. So this is the example which I have already discussed with you, that not all victims will respond to the question asked. So researcher can contact people they know or volunteer to get in touch with the victim and collect more information. The way in which you do snowball technique. So this is the pictorial representation. I believe that, just listening to things and reading to things, it is a bit more difficult rather than just looking at the picture and understanding it. So I take one sample, that one person gives me 2 referrals. Now the second person again gives me 3 referrals in both the cases. This is one way of doing it. Second way of doing it, one person gives me 2 referrals. The other person again gives me one more referral. So if you can see here, I am able to generate n is equal to 4. And in this case, there is 1 referral. Now this 1 referral has again given me 2 referrals. And here you can see again 2, 3 referrals. So this is how I generate my sample. I snowball it. Okay. So what is the difference between probability and non-probability sampling? Because of hard press of time, I really have to wind it up on time. So I'll be taking quiz now. I have quiz ready. But what I will do is I will send you the quiz along with the answers, which you can see later. And just go through it. And if you have any doubts, you can always send back those questions to the organizers of the workshop, and they can get back to us and we can give you answers on that. Okay. What's the difference? Probability technique based on randomization, non-probability technique based on not random selection of samples. So if I just put it over here, this is the difference between probability and non-probability sampling. Very easy to remember. So if you can just go through it, this is what we have been telling you in the entire session about probability and non-probability sampling. In probability, there is randomness. In non-probability, there is no question. It is subjective judgment of the researcher who will represent the sample. Probability, everyone in the population who's part of the population has an equal chance of getting selected, while it is not true in case of non-probability sampling. Researchers use this technique when they want to keep a tab on sampling bias. What is sampling bias? We have already discussed type 1 and type 2 error. Still, we say that, type 1 error is still okay to commit. Type 2 error is a crime. We should not commit it. And sampling bias is not a concern in case of non-probability sampling. Why? Because majority of the time when we use non-probability sampling, our major assumption is the population is not known to us. And in that case, a safer method to do sampling and research is to go for non-probability sampling. So there is no I must not say that probability is better, non-probability is better. It always depends upon the type of topic. But if you ask me personally as a researcher, I personally prefer non-probability because population is not known. I cannot have access to that population. Number one, population is not known. Number two, if the population is known, I cannot select a representative sample. That is why I will prefer non-probability over probability, because to save my time and to really do a pilot research. So,
दिख रहा है?
This is what all I have made a small table for all of you to understand which sampling technique to use. So if you can see here, simple random sampling, when you will use, it's a probability type of sampling. When to use, when population is heterogeneous, several different groups and strata are there. That is why stratified sampling, and some groups are related to study group. When we'll use cluster sampling, again, it is a sampling and population made of unit instead of individuals. That means they have some commonalities. You can cluster it, you can make it into clusters. That is when you will use cluster sampling. And quota sampling is a non-probability method of sampling. Again, there has to be stratas. And in this case, because of constraints, you would like not to go for stratified random sampling, but quota sampling. So research design is something which you should know, and it's a separate topic, but I don't think we'll be able to cover it because anyways, we were supposed to cover sampling. And I'll do a small, meanwhile, I'll just prepare for a small poll. I'll post a question to you, a very small question, not a technical question as well, just to have a fair understanding about how was the session for all of you and whether you learned something out of this session or not is the entire objective around it. Just give me a second. And meanwhile, if you have any questions, please post those questions in the chat box.
Yes, any participant having any question, they can ask it either in the chat box or they can raise their hand so they can be unmuted. Ma'am, it can be possible to stop sharing your screen so that we
Just
can.
a sec, madam. Just a sec, madam.
Okay,
I'm
you
actually
have-
just, yeah,
Okay.
generating. Yeah.
Yeah, got it, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. So meanwhile, please understand this is just level 1 where you have understood the concept and maybe you have just brushed up some concept about sampling technique and other things. And it's not the only thing which you need to know. It is just the starting point of doing research. So I've opened a poll. Please answer to the questions. I understand 2-hour session is a long session and all of you would, really like to take a pause now. I hope the session was informative and we were able to help you understand at least some concept about sampling.
Ma'am, it was indeed a very informative session. I can see a lot of praise and appreciation in the chat box for both the resource person. So it is definitely a very nice and a knowledgeable session for us.
Thank you very much, madam.
I
So,
request the participants to please answer the poll question. We want 100% participation in the poll. Please do the needful.
So in such long sessions and technical topics, only, these poll questions are the way to make sure that participants feel energetic and they are engaged in the session.
Connected, they are connected.
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, there is one question about SurveyMonkey.
Yeah.
Somebody is asked about what the SurveyMonkey is all about. Can you throw some light on it?
SurveyMonkey is a platform. If you just go in Google and you write surveymonkey.com, there will be a portal kind of a thing which will open. And in that portal, you have provision for making questionnaire. You have provision. What I'm saying by provision, what I mean is that as a researcher, what we do is we write down our objective, then we start writing our questions, or we take a standard scale. But in case of SurveyMonkey, there's a lot of things which are already integrated in that. So if you will say that I want to do a customer satisfaction survey, on this topic, it will also suggest questions which can be taken. And a poll like Google form, what we create in Google form, will automatically be created over there. And in that case, your effort to make a questionnaire, collect data, decide upon right sample size reduces a lot. Say we use SPSS and Excel to understand or to do tabulation and analysis. In a similar way, we can use Gpoll and SurveyMonkey to do all these things for us. So you can write your own questions also, but suggestive questions can also be taken from SurveyMonkey. So there is a free thing which you can use, there is a paid thing which you can use, and even your institution can take a subscription which can be utilized by all faculty members, and it reduces a lot of time in making the questionnaire and collecting the data. Okay, so thank you very much for the feedback, and I really am thankful. We both are thankful. Manisha ma'am and myself are extremely thankful. Majority of the people have liked the session, and I like to also share this and that means it's a good start for all of you from here, and we hope that we keep on meeting each other, being in touch with each other, and learn more from each other. Thank you very much, and I'll just stop sharing the screen, and if ma'am, you can go ahead.